A legal suit seeking to halt implementation of the mobile traffic monitoring platform by the Communications Ministry and Kelny GVG has been dismissed by Accra High Court. Two private citizens, Sarah Safweje and Maximus Ametogo, through their lawyers, had argued that allowing Kelny GVG to go plug into the systems of the telcos will amount to a breach of privacy. The presiding judge, Justice Anthony Yeboah, in his ruling, described the application as lacking merit, explaining the plaintiffs did not provide enough evidence to support their claims. There is more in the following report.
Sarah Safweje and Maximus Ametogo were seeking to freeze government's efforts to monitor real-time call traffic for purposes of calculating taxes due government. They argued in court allowing Kelny GVG to do the monitoring will amount to breach of privacy. They maintain the National Communications Authority, Communications Ministry and Kelny GVG will be connecting to all physical nodes of the mobile network operators, granting them access to monitor voice and other forms of communication. The claims of the plaintiff was challenged by the Communication Ministry, which maintained the current architecture of the platform granted access to only relevant nodes for monitoring traffic, that is, statistics relating to billing and not the actual communication. The regulator also indicated that a filter had been put in place to ensure irrelevant data was not obtained on the platform. The Ministry of Communication also informed the court that the mobile network operators had been granted access to the system to enable them determine independently what data was being monitored at any given time. Delivering his ruling, Justice Anthony Yeboah said it was obvious on the documents before him that the applicants had no personal knowledge of the common monitoring platform. He said they had additionally failed to disclose their source of information and grounds of belief that implementing the deal will amount to a breach of their rights. Justice Yeboah said the evidence provided by the Communications Ministry showed there wouldn't be a breach. He wondered why the telecommunications companies whose networks had been connected to and who are defendants in the case did not challenge the claims by the Communications Ministry. Justice Yeboah said their silence suggested the position of the ministry was unchallengeable. Justice Yeboah dismissed the application for injunction, describing it as lacking merit and peddling of evidenceless fears. Deputy Minister of Communication George Anda told reporters the decision shows government is doing the right thing.
Of course, we do recognize that this is an issue of national interest, and so we congratulate the applicants. I believe that it's just a matter of being misinformed, and clearly in the judgment you could realize that the judge was saying that there was no basis for some of the claims that was informing the application as far as he was concerned. And I think that this clearly shows that we're doing the right thing. We're listening to the concerned. I hope that this will inform everybody to believe what the Minister of Communications has been saying consistently. We are doing this for Ghana. We are doing this in the best interest of Ghana. It is not in our interest to have anybody snooping on anybody's calls because it could be us. And so there's no basis for any concern.
The substantive case remains before the court.
President Akufo-Addo has dismissed suggestions the decision to create more regions was taken for political gain. A committee for the creation of the new regions recently recommended the residents in the areas where these regions are to be created vote to either approve or reject the proposal. Speaking in the Adaklu constituency on day 2 of his 3-day tour of the Volta region, the president stressed he is not creating new regions for votes, as there are many regions that do not vote for him, and that he is only seeking to improve the governance of the people.
The Constitution wants to be sure that the demand is a genuine, popular, broad-based demand. Not that a few people have gone and sat in a room somewhere with respect. A few chiefs go and sit in a room somewhere and cook up some story. They want their own region. No. That the mass of the people of the region support the idea. This is the constitutional reality. And if it happens, if indeed regions come about as of this, please, we should not see it in any antagonistic way. It is not meant to be a prescription for making hostilities between one lot of people and another lot of people. This Volta region, there's been peace and cohabitation here amongst all kinds of different people for a very long time. The creation of the region is not intended to disturb it. In my view, God willing, it will in fact heighten the cooperation, the collaboration, and the friendship between all the peoples who have been in this Volta region. There is no political underlying agenda in this thing. I am not doing it for votes. I don't know how the people in these regions are going to vote. Because they have their region, it means automatically that they will vote for Akufo-Addo. Why is that the case? There are plenty of regions in this country where they don't vote for me. Why would there be any more different if these regions are created? There's no political agenda in this matter. And there's no attempt to create ethnic antagonisms or passions in this exercise. It is meant to try and improve the governance of our people.
Well, President Akufo-Addo has indicated that his government has put the country's economy back on track to enable it grow to meet demands of development. According to him, due to the limited resources available to the country, it is prudent for citizens to elect leaders capable of growing national resources, just as his government is determined to do. He was speaking at an inspection exercise of the Youth and Resource Center under construction at Adaklu Trefa in the Adaklu district of the Volta region as part of his three-day tour.
In welcoming the president to the Adaklu district, the chief of Adaklu, Amfoe Togbe Agbobada, said lack of good access roads, potable water and health facilities are major challenges the district is grappling with and appealed for immediate intervention.
About the water problem, Adaklu has faced a lot of challenges over the years in our water problems. We depend solely on our water bodies like streams, which has been polluted by the Fulani herdsmen, the cattle of the Fulani herdsmen, and this poses a lot of health hazards. Some of the streams even have diseases like elephantiasis and bilharzia. We are glad to know that fund has been solicited and is available. On our last encounter with the regional minister, he made us understand that the funds is now available to continue the work of the 5 district water project, which have its treatment center at Adidome. We are pleading with His Excellency, the President of the Republic, to address this menace in due time. Next is the health facilities. In fact, as the saying goes, that when there is life, there is hope. I want to say where there is good health, there is life. And therefore, in every human collectivity, we need to address health issues very well. We are calling on the president that he should extend beyond his doors to build 1 district hospital in Adaklu. On this note,
in response, President Akufo-Addo indicated the country's resources cannot match the growing demand of development from citizens, hence the need to prioritize and address the most urgent ones first. He therefore implored citizens to elect leaders with the qualities of managing the economy, adding his government has been able to put the country's economy back on track.
1, the birth certificate. 2, the passport. And if you have neither, a mechanism has been provided within the law for establishing your Ghanaian identity. It isn't as if they are exclusive and there's nothing else. There is a mechanism in the law that allows people to testify to your Ghanaian citizenship. And that is also a method for acquiring the card. But it is important that we go through this exercise. You live here next door to Togo. Everybody there has a card need on today. It helps them plan their country. It helps them in their security arrangements. It helps them in their budgetary direction. We have been trying since Kufuor's time. In the NDC period, there was absolutely no movement of this.
In a related development, President Akufo-Addo has once again called into question claims of massive infrastructure developments made by the erstwhile John Mahama administration. The president, who has been touring the Volta region, says contrary to the claims, not much has been done. He cited the Eastern Corridor Road project, which he says is an example of the terrible state in which the previous administration left the country.
The Honorable Kwesi Appiah, the Minister for Roads and Highways, was one of the busiest men in my government. For obvious reasons, the roads through throughout our country are abortion. In 2016, when we were on the campaign, I came here. I also went to the Western region, this famous Eastern corridor. And I said that President Mahama was saying that the period of his office has seen infrastructural development that we had never seen in Ghana before. Unprecedented infrastructural development. I hope you remember this expression. Unprecedented. And then I said, I don't see this unprecedented development. Everywhere I go, I'm on bad roads. He said I was asleep on the road, and that is why I didn't see the good development that had taken place.
Well, government, he said, was making efforts to get contractors back to work on the roads under a 20 million euros facility.
Today I come on the Eastern Corridor Road, and I didn't sleep one day. I couldn't sleep. We're going to fix it. And my father has told you he's going to fix it. We are going to fix it. And it will not be for anybody to say whether somebody is asleep or not asleep. They will see that the road has been fixed. The reasons, the petitions have all been handed over. The Global Commission has done its work. The recommendations are out. Let us see what will happen with these recommendations. But I'm imploring you all to support the work of the Commission and the recommendations that it is made.
You're watching Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multi TV. We're taking a break, but still to come in the bulletin. Energy Ministry requests Parliament's ratification of concession agreement for the takeover of the electricity company operations by Meralco, which the minister says is an enhanced deal.
The quality of service, efficiency and finances of ECG and NETCO to support achievements of a middle income status.
Stay tuned, we'll be back in a bit. Parliament has been asked to ratify the concession agreement which will see a takeover of the electricity company of Ghana by the Manila Electric Company for a period of 20 years. Once ratified, the new company, also known as Meralco, is expected to assume control of the country's electricity distribution sector from February next year. Workers of the state electricity distributor have fiercely resisted the plant takeover, which they say would prove disastrous. They have also argued it will lead to massive layoffs. But Minister of Energy Boakye Agyarko, shortly after laying the agreement, addressed a news conference where he explained the Kufuor administration succeeded in renegotiating a better deal for the workers.
It became part of our inheritance on coming into office January 2017. And there was the decision whether to continue or to abandon. And as I said, the analysis of the status.
We'll bring you that soundbite, but the minister also explained the disqualification of BXC Company Limited during the bidding process.
BXC had a contract, an ongoing contract with ECG pertaining to loss reduction and the intimate issues of their distribution system. It was an ongoing contract which was rolled many times over. Now, in the bid documents, BSC was asked if they had any contract or were aware of any contract in pendency. And they replied to the negative. Now, if you have been given the opportunity to have a contract with ECG, that puts you in the driver's seat. That gives you insiders information that pertains to the same concession that you are bidding for. My respectful judgment would have been either to say, because I'm conflicted, I recuse, or even if I don't recuse, I come forward and say that this is my status. I know of this or that. Once they answered in the negative, it didn't look well for the process and had to be disqualified on those bases. They went to court trying to injunct the entire process. And the judge found it an unnecessary move and therefore disallowed it.
We return to the earlier soundbite where the minister was saying that the country got a better deal from the concession agreement.
It became part of our inheritance on coming into office January 2017. And there was the decision whether to continue or to abandon. And as I said, the analysis of the status of ECG as it held true in 2014 still held true in 2017. But the government decided that in order to enhance the compact, there were certain issues or certain contents that needed to be addressed and addressed clearly. One was on the labor front. Labor was not sure of its future or fate under the concession agreement. We were able to change the terms and conditions by saying that all ECG workers who would be transferred to the new company or the concessionaire would keep their jobs and their collective bargaining agreements negotiated previously, and that there will be no involuntary redundancies during the entire period of the concession.
The West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has been ordered by an Accra High Court to release the results of some 20 candidates whose exams were cancelled after the 2017 Basic Education Certificate examinations. The council, which had cost of 5,000 cedis awarded against it, has 30 days to comply. The candidates of the A to Z Preparatory and Junior High School had their results cancelled in 2017 after WAEC claimed they had colluded amongst themselves during the exam. But they then dragged WAEC to court, accusing it of breaching the fundamental human rights. Godwin Aaron Monyo, proprietor of the A to Z Preparatory and Junior High School, tells Joy News the cancellation dented the school's reputation.
It was a trauma because some parents were taking their kids from the school. Yes, because it was a damage or attack on the school. One interesting issue is that in the school, that batch, there were twins sitting together. One result was released, another was cancelled. I also have 3 kids in the school, the same Munyu. 2 of my kids' results were released, or was cancelled. So if you say they've copied, how can twins be sitting together? They will not copy. You release one result and cancel the other. How come 3 families sitting together? 2 will not copy, 1 will copy. You couldn't understand the issue. This is a school which I've been doing very well since we started writing BEC. We're always among the best 15 schools in the area. All of a sudden, your result is cancelled. Parents are withdrawing from the school. You know, private school running in this country is very difficult because, one, we are competing with government which is running free education, okay, which is also a challenge to the private schools.
You also spoke about the way forward regarding the affected candidates.
The children too, they were going through a lot of trauma because they were hoping to go to school. Their colleagues are in school, they're not in school. They're at home. They're at home, yes. They are very sad. But the release of the decision of the court has brought some relief to them. So they are hoping that next academic year to go to secondary school.
We're taking a break to bring you business news, but still ahead in the bulletin, doctors at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital are warning the Ministry of Health directive against the turning away patients could prove disastrous. We have that coming up and more. Stay tuned.
Hello again, good evening to you, welcome to Business. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is likely to present the mid-year review on July 19. Sources say this is the date the minister is considering, subject to Parliament's approval. With 9 days to the presentation, Joy Business tries to ascertain what the minister is going to talk about in the following report.
The highlights of the minister's presentation will be those tax measures outlined in the 2018 budget that the finance minister wants to review. However, it's still unclear for now whether the finance minister would have his way in terms of reviewing the tax measures, which could result in the introduction of some new taxes and possible increases of rate. This is because Cabinet is yet to approve those proposed tax measures tabled by the finance minister. However, sources say the VAT rate could go up to about 20%, while SSNIT contributions could also be increased. Joy Business understands that new measures are being proposed to help deal with the serious loopholes in revenue mobilization and ensure that government is able to raise the required funds to support its expenditure by close of this year. The country's financial administration laws require the finance minister to review budget estimates by the middle of each year.
Now, former MD of ADB Bank, Daniel Asiedu, says the banking sector is very responsive to issues pertaining to non-performing loans. Despite moves by the central bank to sanitize the sector, the industry's asset quality remains a source of concern. The latest bank sector report has revealed non-performing loans ratio remain high. Reacting to the report, Daniel Asiedu said disciplined banks make it a point to deal with the matter very cautiously.
Certainly, NPLs generally do have impact on the cost of credit and the industry as a whole, from my perspective as a banker. That's because, first of all, when the NPLs are rising, the tendency is that banks would hold credit. But you also agree with me that over the years, banks have done well to bring the NPLs down, and that's because of the various structures that have been instituted by banks, and also the support that has been provided by the regulator. And so I think the industry has done well generally, although there's still room for improvement.
You have been a sector for quite a while, and of course you have been there issues related to the city. People have been blaming the black market on the recent development that we're experiencing currently. Do you share in this argument?
Well, I mean, when issues happen, generally people will ascribe blame or try to push blames, but I believe that we all have parts to play. I don't think much as we appreciate, much as we agree that the city has depreciated slightly in the last few months, I don't think it's significantly bad, as it were. But I think the management, those who are managing the economy, are doing their bit to make sure that they stabilize it. But there are so many factors that have to be considered. I don't think the black market alone is enough to cause the city to depreciate as much as it is depreciating.
Now, the coordinator of the Third World Network Africa, Dr. Yao Graham, has criticized government for persistently keeping the ban on small-scale mining in the country. According to him, the unnecessary delay in lifting the ban on small-scale mining activities is an indication the government has vested interest. In March 2017, the government placed a ban on illegal mining activities following a wave of media campaign on the menace. But Dr. Yao Graham, in an interview with Joy Business, says government is in a confused state on the exact date to lift the ban.
The clear confusion in government about the way forward on the ban on small-scale gold mining is very worrying. We in Third World Network Africa always insisted that the ban was misguided in the first place, insofar as it included artisanal, legal, small-scale miners. People's businesses have been destroyed, and there seems to be no remedy or even sensitivity to this effect on these people. And it's important for the government to end what we sense is the incoherence in government about the way forward. Is it a problem of which ministry is leading the thing going on? There are rumors that there's disagreement, within government about the way forward. There are rumors about some other agencies, not being in agreement. But what is important, really, in our view, is that when you look at, the different pronouncements. For example, the report that the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources said until all the rivers, were portable, the ban should not be lifted. It's a completely bizarre, position. And we really think that this lifting of this ban is long overdue. And this is the opinion of even some of the key agencies in the sector, because they dare not come public to say it. And the cost of a policy which was not clearly thought through when it was initiated. I think it's about time, we cut the losses that honest business people are taking because of, this policy.
How about those who also feel that let's clearly see all the interventions that will prevent illegal mining, which will go into destroying our water bodies and all these things in place before we lift this ban?
Legal small-scale miners have nothing to do with this business, because the conflation of legal small-scale miners with illegal miners is a problem. I've always said that the Ghana government will not dare do this to the large-scale miners. Are there negative environmental externalities from large-scale mining? Plenty. When the accident happened at the Newmont mine and some people died, the government simply imposed a fine and allowed them to carry on. Did they close all the mines to say that let us be sure that we will never ever, have an accident in the mine before we allow this thing to continue? So it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. The conflation of legal and illegal without any analysis of what is going on is a problem. You've given people license. You have regulatory agencies who are supposed to inspect and make sure that each person given a license is complying. Are we going to stop all people driving on the road because a few people are not driving properly? Crazy. Or some people don't have licenses.
Turning to aviation now, and the Director General for the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Simon Alute, says the introduction of directives to promote passenger rights and responsibilities have now been postponed to the third quarter of the year. It will be recalled the aviation sector regulator indicated earlier it will introduce some directives in June to help address unfair treatment complaints by some airlines operating in the country. But speaking to Joy Business, Simon Alute says the directive is yet to be finalized, therefore postponing its introduction to the third quarter of this year.
According to the Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Simon Alute, consumer satisfaction has always been paramount to the regulator.
Delivery of quality service to them is paramount to the successful operations of our industry in Ghana. So right from the terminal building, you realize that there are customer complaint cards where any customer, be it a passenger, an airline, the immigration, anybody rendering service to another person or organization within the airport could fill these complaint forms when they feel the quality of service is not up to the required standard.
Mr. Alute added the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority further plans to issue new customer protection directives by the third quarter of this year. The new directives are to help ensure that both operators and passengers are fully aware of their responsibilities and rights.
We will also soon come out with economic directives on passenger rights and consumer protection. This will ensure that both passengers and service providers, particularly airlines, know their responsibilities and obligations to ensure that the service which is provided meets our standards, which conform to ICAO standards. So in other words, we want the service delivery to passengers to be outstanding, excellent, and exceptional. It's in the final stages. We've had a series of stakeholder consultations. We've had very important inputs from airlines, from the public, from passengers. And our expectation is by the end of the third quarter of the year, these directives will come into force.
Sheila Tamaklu for Joy Business.
And that's it for Business Tonight. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuachi. Riafi. Have a good evening.
Health workers at the Surgical and Medical Emergency Unit of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital are warning a Ministry of Health directive against hospitals turning away patients could have even more dire consequences on the country's health sector. The doctors say they are now compelled to treat patients on plastic chairs and on the floor due to the lack of beds. Many have expressed outrage after photos of patients lying on floors were widely shared on social media. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba was at the hospital and reports the doctors are concerned the current state of affairs predisposes both health workers and patients, as well as their relatives, to greater risks.
The surgical and medical emergency units at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital is virtually bursting at its seams, as lots of patients receive their intravenous fluids on plastic chairs. Some of them have no choice but to sit on kitchen stools to receive treatment. Here at the surgical emergency units of the hospital, I met one Fatih Janat. Her child was brought here to this facility with a cardiac arrest. Later in the evening of yesterday, she had no choice but to find solace on the hard concrete floor at the hospital.
Was in critical condition, cardiac problem, all the way from Kaswa in an ambulance. When we entered, in fact, there was no bed, but they didn't say so. They said they had been told not to reject anybody. So they admitted us, tried whatever to resuscitate her. But she was lying on the floor wailing. There was nothing they could do because there was no bed. I went home in the night around almost 12. My grandchild called me and said, they've been asked, all of them have been asked to come and sleep outside because other patients were being brought and there was no place for anybody to sit. We were just hanging around her. He was lying, rolling herself. Girl called me and said, they've been asked to sleep outside under a staircase. If I became too worried, somebody with a heart problem, if something happens in the night, the nurses are not around. So my grandchild worked all night while the girl was wailing. Today too, we came to see her sitting on a plastic chair. You see? You have seen her condition now. It's deteriorating.
I've been speaking to the public relations officer of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital, Mustafa Salifu. He says the directive that the hospital should treat all emergency cases has further aggravated the congestion situation here at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. He says they have communicated to all sister clinics and hospitals not to make any referrals to this facility until they are able to deal with the congestion situation.
This is a 36-bed facility unit. But as of yesterday, the patients that we had were in excess of 60. So which means we have literally doubled the number of patients we should actually have at the SME. So that was why we had patients on chairs and some of them were even outside. This morning there was one patient, but fortunately the person has been moving because until space has been created for the person to move. So that is a situation we find ourselves in. But the moment what we are going to do, we are linking up with other hospitals to inform them not to refer. They can do telephonic consultations to give them guide on how to deal with those issues, except the dire emergencies that they will still speak to us and then we take them. We want to do this for 48 hours to allow the place to decongest so that we can start receiving. And spaces with the creators, they have all been moving now. But you still have patients sitting on chairs receiving treatment at the SME now, as I speak to you now. But in order to deal with this, there are certain measures that we have taken as a hospital. As we went, maybe we'll move there, we'll see the emergency that we'll be moving in before the end of this month. That will provide us an additional space. It will literally double the number of beds that we have here at the new place. We started planning for a bigger place almost 10 years ago. That is the Acute Pain Management Center. So that will substantially deal with the problems we are being confronted with at the moment.
Newly elected national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Freddie Blay, has welcomed calls for a forensic investigation into the purchase of the 275 buses. The purchase of the buses has been met with heavy criticism from various sectors. The minority and some civil organizations have also called for a probe by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Speaking in an interview with Joy News' Kojo Yangsing, Mr. Blay said he is open to calls for the investigation.
The minority now says they are going to call for investigation.
Ignore them. That's my attitude. Ignore them. I heard somebody like Ahi. I will pardon him. He doesn't understand it. Some members of the minority party, I'm talking about NDC, I've heard them on radio, that they should also do the same thing. If some say they won't do it, but rather want to call for an investigation into where I had the means, I say, why not? Maybe they should start with a bank. Go and ask the bank. They need not announce it. They should proceed. Some even said that they have asked Martin Amedu to do that. We'll find out why Martin Amedu to do what? To investigate. Well, if you want to say that Freddie Blay have no ideas to bring to help, to get bank to help, let's investigate. But I find it a poverty of thought of some individuals. If for propaganda purposes people want to do that, look, ignore them. My only worry is that individual like Togbe Afede has come in, mentioned it. Former President John has even descended, but from a different angle.
You saw his tweet?
Togbe Afede says what? He says perception of corruption and vote buying. I'm disturbed. I find it that maybe he doesn't understand what he's talking about. In his position as president of the House of Chiefs in this country, maybe from nowhere he's also risen to become president, or he has become a big businessman in this country. Maybe he has never asked for loans. He got the money all from selling palm wine to get to there. Maybe I'm also sweeping streets and I've had that ideas. Why not? Or he prefers only to be the only person who should do that. Vote buying. Vote buying.
Responding to comments by the representative of the UK's Conservative Party, John Hayward, on the use of resources to print delegates' posters, Mr. Blay debunked the comment, saying that situations in both countries regarding politics are different, hence the use of different strategies.
If you print 10,000 posters and 5,000 people are delegates, the posters will be more than the people.
But do you need 10,000 posters?
Please, I wish you were standing for an election. We have 275 constituencies. 275. It will cost a lot to print posters and banners. A few cities will do that. So if I print 20,000 posters, big posters, 3 posters, and put them all around, I want to be visible. If you say we are not in Europe, whereby you do only WhatsApps and social media, and then that's what door-to-door. We can't afford a door-to-door. They may. So maybe he got it from a wrong cultural perspective. But why not? He's a friend from a Conservative party. But don't make us believe that you want to say display of opulence. We slept in classrooms, dormitories.
Watching Joy News, we're taking a break to bring you showbiz, but still ahead, the Minority Caucus in Parliament says it is convinced there is a deliberate attempt by the governing MPP to rig the upcoming 2020 election. The Minority Caucus in Parliament says it is convinced there is a deliberate attempt by the governing MPP to rig the upcoming 2020 elections. This attempt, the minority says, is due to the sudden issuance of letters of transfer of 2 persons in charge of the birth and death registry in the Volta region, Mr. Richard Womega and Ms. Peace Agbanyo. MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, speaking to the press, described the transfers as a dangerous development, seeking to preclude those from the Volta region from acquiring birth certificates to aid them in the registration of the Ghana card.
The minority serves notice in the most unequivocal terms that we will not permit the flagrant violation of Article 45A of the Constitution of Ghana, which mandates only, and I repeat, only the Electoral Commission to, quote, compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law, unquote. We will therefore fiercely resist with every force we can marshal any attempt to hide under the National Identification Authority's discredited Ghana card to usurp the Electoral Commission's constitutional mandate of being the sole body to compile a register of voters. The minority hereby calls for the immediate reinstatement of Mr. Richard Womega and Ms. Peace Agbenyo of the Volta Regional Births and Deaths Registry. We also demand that Mr. John Yao Agbeko of the National Births and Deaths Registry be recalled to post immediately. May we remind government that Article 23 of the Constitution of Ghana imposes an obligation on administrative bodies and administrative officials to act fairly and reasonably and comply with the requirements imposed on them by law.
Chief Justice Ofoa Akuffo has outdoored the complaint unit of the Judicial Service and opened a gender-based court in Cape Coast. The complaint unit, according to the Chief Justice, is to allow members of the public with problems, complaints and grievances about the administration of justice and other related issues to seek redress. The Chief Justice commissioned the project while on tour of the Central Region. Richard Kojonyako has more.
It's my singular honor and pleasure to declare the Central Regional Office of the Public Complaints and Court Inspectorate Unit open.
This is the second day of the Chief Justice's tour of the Central Region. This morning, he paid a courtesy call on the Central Regional Minister Kwame Nadankan and the Omahini of Ogua traditional area, Sabere Makwesiata II. These two visits herald the outdooring of the complaints section and then the anti-corruption unit of the Judicial Service in the Central Region. The Chief Justice also outdoored or commissioned the gender-based courts.
I wish to reiterate that the very fact that our unit is headed by no less a person than a justice of the Court of Appeal is in itself a statement of the seriousness with which we regard the work of the complaints unit. There will be an officer at every court whose responsibility it is to receive such complaints.
The Chief Justice explains that the complaint unit is to enable the general public bring forth their complaints and other challenges they have with the judicial system or the operations of the judicial system in Ghana. She highlighted the need for the public to have some confidence in the judiciary. She cites instances where after a case has been adjudicated and finality brought to the matter, some of the parties are not happy, and she is encouraging such parties who have such grievances to forward them to the complaint section so that they could be dealt with.
As the slogan on the cover of the action plan suggests, we will uproot corruption wherever it is found, at whatever level, and whatever penalties will need to be put in place and exacted for corruption. We will continually explore such more and more effective responses and effective penalties. There are nations in this world where there is zero corruption. Sweden, the other Scandinavian countries, and even Singapore. We are capable, I believe, and I'm told also in Rwanda. That's what we are aiming at, and we will get there. We need the cooperation of everybody here.
The ceremony was graced by traditional authorities, political leaders, and members of the general public. From the Cape Coast Court Complex, my name is Richard Kwejonya for Joy News.
2012 and 2016, independent presidential candidate Jacob Osei-Yeboah is questioning government's commitment to fulfill all 2016 campaign promises by the end of 2020, describing the Akufo-Addo-led government as one that is best at trumpeting policies rather than implementing them. Mr. Yeboah said despite having the best of policies, such as the One District, One Factory initiative, government lacks the integrity to see them through.
Mr. President, you cannot fight Goliath with an armor of 110 ministers, slowing the agility of your movement, or vigilante groups perpetrating lawlessness, or election sponsors demanding project-inflated costs to the nation. Mr. President, you cannot fight the Goliath with Vuvuzela economic strategy, vampire economic implementation, sucking wealth from Guta, small-scale miners, the gas recirculation, energy, oil and gas, and creating the Dutch disease. The Vuvuzela Ghana Post Digital Address cannot implement the National Identification System, the NIS, which is a great tool towards national development. The Vuvuzela Integrated Aluminium, the Vuvuzela One District, One Factory, the Vuvuzela 19 billion from the Chinese, and even now, the $400 million is becoming a mirage. Know that Ghana cannot get better governance with the old ideas. But the free SHS is a good step, and he must improve its functionality before 2020. The National Identification System is a great tool for new heroes of Africa, of Ghana and Africa. He should leave with that legacy completed with intelligent addressing. The One District, One Factory is key. But, Mr. President, start developing the input cottage industries to these much-touted industries for sustainability.
Describing the 2020 elections as an election of Armageddon, Mr. Yeboah hinted of his preparations ahead of it, of the elections that is more than 2 years away.
They are the political parties. They are the neo-colonialists. They should change so that Ghana will be a better place. Other than that, in 2020, I tell you, you see the shadows that is casting. They will allow us to kill ourselves for them. And that is something, and the reason why all these civil society groups, all of us, we say that no, we no go sit down, make them cheat us every day. Wallahi. It's independent presidential candidate 2020. And it's not about me, but I want the masses. Let's do away with these political parties. That is why we have all these civil society groups with us. We are mopping up. We say that enough is enough. Now that Nana has become president, it's now that everybody has understood what I started talking about since 2012, that the MPP and NDC, they are one people. We should not believe in the fact that they are different. They are one. But I'm going to support the independent presidential system because that is the solution of national unity government that we need.
Some residents in the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, and its environs are said to carry garbage from their respective homes to dispose them off in the central business district. That is a concern of many traders at Edum and Kejetia when Joy News visited the area on Monday. This attitude, among others, they say, is actually contributing to the poor sanitary conditions in the metropolis, especially in the central business district. Mahmoud Mohammed has more in today's agenda.
Though waste management authorities have placed dustbins at vantage point to reduce refuse menace, some traders and customers still litter around.
Anytime I buy food, I could keep the waste on me until I come across a dustbin. Like my colleague said, it is how we were brought up. Even when you tell others others not to dump refuse anyhow, they will begin to ask whether you are the government. I think there is the need for more education.
Known as the Garden City of the country, one will expect the impact of the name reflects in a people. But that isn't the case. Maybe, just maybe, the people themselves have refused to live up to the name.
I think some people are ignorant and some don't have dustbins at their homes, but that shouldn't be an excuse to litter around. We say abroad looks beautiful, we watch them on TV, but do they litter around? Some people will even ignore the dustbin. They will dump refuse anyhow, but others will do the right thing. I think it is all about how we were brought up. Now that we have the dustbins, there is the need for more announcement so that people will get to know the essence of the dustbins.
Over the years, government and waste management authorities have implemented measures to curb the sanitary situation in the once beautiful city, but that have failed. Attempts to revamp some of these measures continue not to succeed. Even the sanitation day, which many people anticipated could at least change behavioral attitude of Ghanaians, have done little to that effect. From Orangi during Kojo Bonsu's era to the current Chief Executive Officer of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, Esibianchi, which has so far placed dustbins at vantage point, there is still so much to be desired. Today on Joy News Agenda, we are asking why government attempts to solve sanitation challenges has always failed to bring the needed change. Most of the dustbins placed within the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly are currently full to the brim. No attempts have been made to empty them. But the most worrying concerns traders raise are some of their colleagues carry garbage from their respective houses to the central business districts.
Some people even carry garbage from their respective homes to dump into the dustbin. When you talk about it, they say you cannot do anything to them. For me, there should be an advert on TV to educate so that the younger ones would learn from it. If the government has realized there's the need to station dustbins at vantage points to be able to manage the waste, and someone fails to make good use of it, I think they should be arrested and prosecuted.
I've heard of people bringing garbage from the house, but I've never seen one before. If I ever come across anyone, I will inform the city authority.
But why would someone carry refuse to the central business district? A trader, Enchi Isaac, explains.
There must be a problem somewhere, because why would someone carry garbage from their house to the central business district? If we want to put an end to that, the government should first solve that problem.
This is Kejetia Roma Hill session of the Assembly. Everyone is busy trading here, but nobody cares about the environment. We are told most of these garbage were deliberately disposed of by the traders.
Today, for instance, I am waiting for the garbage collectors to inform them so that they can help us. I came here earlier in the morning and had a confrontation with someone.
Isaac Kusi, who is in charge of taxi cabs here, says they are doing their possible best to reduce the menace.
Because we have bought a dustbin to keep the place clean. We make sure any driver that drops just a polythene on the ground will be made to pay 200 cedis.
But the question still remains, Who should be blamed for the menace in the city? Is it the KMA that has placed dustbins at various places, or traders who deliberately litter around?
We should enact laws so that those laws will deal with the people. We should get enough toilet facilities in town too. These were things we had in the past.
Mahmoud Mohammed Noordin's reports for Joy News.
In this techno era, it's easy to find love online at the click of perhaps a few buttons. In fact, for many people, the internet presents a whole universe of potential partners. For others, though, internet love is cheap love. Ahead of the Joy, Beauty and Bridal Fair, Joy News' Nancy Emefajradoze asked on the streets of Accra what people make of finding love online.
I found a love for me.
People are usually looking for money, fame and power, and the old-age idea of true love. Finding that one special person surpasses all other goals for most people. Gone were the days where parents were involved in who their children marry. It's evolved to people reading about the 100 secrets to finding real love. But now, you just need to log on to one of the million dating sites across the world, and alas, you might find your partner. Have you ever logged on to these sites and found true love?
I've never logged on to one before, and then I'll never do that because some people will never put the right information about themselves on it, and then they only put false information about themselves on it in order to attract people. And if they attract you and then you guys are in a relationship, you'll be seeing different things, and then you'll be wondering, is this a guy I was really dating on that website? So it's so not right. So it's better you meet the person, if you meet the person face to face, like on your way or any way, but not on, a dating website. It's so not right.
So I've logged on to it. It's scary because you just log in and everything is just clear. You see pornographic things, everybody, like nudity, it's just there. You understand? That's how it is, basically.
You logged on to find love?
That was the intention, that was what I had in mind, because that's what it's for, right? So yes, logged on to find love, to find a girlfriend. But mostly it's because of flirting. It's not really serious. Because people will be somewhere talking about sexuality, talking about this and this. When you meet, it's not a case or you have sex. Like, it's just like that.
I haven't logged on to any dating sites because I don't think it's an ideal place to find my love. Why? Because I think I should just meet a person, and if it's a work, it's a work. I don't need to log on to any site to find anyone. I don't believe in that.
Going to dating site to find love, I don't prefer it. It's not the right place to go and find love. The issue is that the person you are chatting, you don't know whether the person is a monster or zombie. Whatever, you may not know. I have got an evidence that somebody who dated a girl on Facebook, after the girl came on marriage, the girl couldn't fetch water.
Many people say where you find love does not really matter, but can computer dating really improve the quality of matches? But what does our love and relationship coach who will be speaking at the Joy, Beauty and Bridal Fair think?
Fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with the dating site because these are human beings who are there. It is after you are there and you've met somebody that you like and what happens thereafter, that counts. The same way you can randomly meet somebody in a club or meet somebody in a church or meet somebody at a program, bump into somebody in a mall. It's the same way you meet somebody at the dating site. When you meet them, on the face value, they are who they claim to be. What happens thereafter becomes your conversations, the consequences of your conversation, your exploration, your investigations, and your probing, and you opening your eyes.
Well, ahead of this, I logged onto a popular Ghanaian site. Who knows? I might find my true love. Nancy Emefajradoze, Joy News.
And in the headlines, President Akufo-Addo once again has challenged claims by the Eswal Mahama administration of massive infrastructure development, saying his tour of the Volta region revealed otherwise. Accra High Court dismisses application for injunction against mobile traffic monitoring platform. Government says it proves it is doing something right. Energy Ministry requests Parliament's ratification of concession agreement for the takeover of the Electricity Company of Ghana's operations by Meralco, which the Minister says is an enhanced deal. In business, Finance Minister considers July 19 for presentation of the mid-year budget review to Parliament pending its approval. And doctors at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital warn Ministry of Health directive against turning away patients could prove very disastrous if not reconsidered, as public express outrage over photos of patients being treated on the floor. And my name is Israelai. Thank you very much for watching. You have a good night.
This is Joy News Prime.